It's 5 minutes past 8 over here in the UK, and you are live with the Crypto and Cola show. Once again, back for another edition. So thank you all for turning up. Much appreciated. Me and Solo, we're going to be just sort of chewing through some crypto um, matters that have stood out to both of us during the past week since we last met up. So um, we're going to be talking about a number of things, but I just to let you know, we are recording the show. Solo is recording that using the Solo bot this week, so that's what we're doing. But just to make you aware, this show is recorded, but we will switch it off for the after show, and that's kind of the compromise I've made, because I know some people don't like these shows recorded; they feel inhibited to speak, blah blah blah. But I think it's important that we do record the show. Sorry about that. Anyway, as I was saying, this is indeed recorded, but the after show won't be recorded, so you can, if you feel more relaxed in that environment, you will be able to do so in the after show. But anyway, let's get going. And thank you all for turning up. Good to see you. Good to see Archange and Eco, Addicted, Hive Trending, Melinda. Haven't seen you before, and thank you for coming along. Unless I've missed you, sorry if I have. Menno, good to see you. Paloma, lovely to see you. Kasim, good to see you. Schmoogle, Osukami, lovely to see you. Solo, as always, good to see you. I'll come to you in just a moment. Sunseeker, I think that's Sunseeker. I think I've pronounced that right. It's a lovely name, by the way. But anyway, good to see you all. Thank you for turning up. It's been an interesting week. It has been an interesting week in crypto land, that's for sure. Sadly, not reflected too well in the price of Bitcoin, but there's light. It's not as bad as it looks. Clearly, we're in a downtrend at the moment. Yeah, I'll just put into the chat now the weekly trading chart, and you'll see what I'm referring to. Just grab that, bear with me. And that's just going into the chat. Right, so that's the weekly Bitcoin trading chart. We started off at 90. We're currently around about 83,000, but that there is its lowest point during the week, 76.5. That was recorded by Coinbase. CoinMarketCap recorded Bitcoin falling on March 11th to around about 76.9, but there we go. It dipped below 80. Always a bit of a worry to see that. As you can see from the graph, generally a downtrend there, but it didn't stay too long below 80, which was good to see. It soon rebounded actually, and it's hanging around where it is right now, around about 80, 83, which is great. Bitcoin doesn't seem to like hanging around below 80,000 for too long, which is really encouraging, I think. Now, we've seen Bitcoin do this twice in the past few weeks. And again, the last time it didn't like it when it went below 80, it soon rebounded. So I think we're seeing some resilience here with Bitcoin, given all the other stuff going on in the conventional markets. So that was, I would say, pretty encouraging to see. Now, let's just take a look at what has been going on with the conventional markets, because as we know, they've taken the hits. There's a lot of negative stuff, downtrends going on there, coupled with the talk, Trump's tariffs are hitting in again, coupled with this talk of a potential recession in the US. Markets have responded, and clearly there's sell-offs going on. Some people are therefore saying that would ultimately impact crypto, and that's why Bitcoin is not doing so well. Now, that may well be the case, but this, I have to say, it kind of troubles me a bit. And I appreciate that the crypto space has now become more aligned with the mainstream. I know that. But if we're seeing small, well, maybe not so small, if we're seeing these movements in the traditional markets, and they are so closely aligning and impacting the crypto markets, it kind of worries me, because we never used to see it. I'm pretty sure, going back a few years, if the traditional markets were nosediving, crypto would go up because it was seen as the alternative, almost as the hedge. I don't know. What are your thoughts? I'm going to go over to Solo now and see what his thoughts are. I'm going to check in with him. Solo, how are you doing? And what are your thoughts on what Bitcoin's been up to the past week?
Yeah, just what you were saying about Bitcoin did not used to follow like the NASDAQ and S&P trends. That is correct. And I think it's because Bitcoin has become so popular, people trade it like they trade their ETFs and other types of digital assets. It is a digital asset to most. So I think it's one of those things where, unfortunately, when the Nasdaq crashes, like it did, the S&P and the Dow, they were all going down. Bitcoin takes a nosedive too these days, and maybe we'll see a decoupling of that. Maybe at some point Bitcoin won't go any lower, but when the markets go down, it's usually Bitcoin is usually going to go down too these days. But you're right; it did not seem to always do that early on, especially.
Well, right. And as I say, given that we are now seeing, I sometimes use the word infiltration, and I think that might be the right word, especially when it comes to the big players out there. Okay, BlackRock and MicroStrategy, or Strategy as they are now known, own 5% of all Bitcoin that will ever be in circulation. That's just at the moment. That's the kind of figure that worries me a bit. Does that worry you or not?
No, 5% is to me, it's really not that big. If it was like 20, 40, 50%, where you could say, oh, they have the majority of something, I definitely start to worry. But 5%, it shows that they have skin in the game. For the longest time, all of these people were talking about, oh, Bitcoin's a good investment, but they didn't buy any. Well, this is a good example that research has been done into Bitcoin on a information technology level, along with looking at the economics of it, and they've put billions, if not maybe trillions of dollars into Bitcoin now.
Okay, yeah, fair point. And you're right, 5%, perhaps at this stage of the game, not so troubling, not so troubling. But let's just throw into the mix a moment. What strategy? It's MicroStrategy. I wish they just stuck with MicroStrategy. You know exactly what I'm talking about. But they've changed their name to just Strategy now. So I'm sure most of you know that, but it's a little bit confusing. But anyway, I'm talking about MicroStrategy, who are now Strategy. Just throw into the mix a moment, Solo, what they did on Monday. They've now filed a prospectus with the SEC. They want to raise $21 billion, okay, to buy $21 billion worth of Bitcoin. Does that worry you or not?
No, they've been buying Bitcoin for years now. How big is this purchase compared to their previous purchases? I'm not sure.
Well, how many Bitcoins would 21 billion buy? Can you do the maths? I reckon that's, what is it, 100,000? So 1 million is 10. I mean, I don't know. Can you do the maths? That's a shit ton of Bitcoin, is it not?
It is. They usually buy like what 5,000 at a time, or a few tens of thousands. So I'm not sure how many it would be in billions, but they usually buy a lot, and they usually buy it on the downtrend, and they usually make their money back. It seems pretty quick.
Okay. I do find the corporate, with their presence in an interest growing in Bitcoin. Again, it's there's two sides to this, and I'm conflicted. I'll be honest. I'm always conflicted by this. It bothers me, but at the same time, it's great in a way because it's clearly legitimizing crypto. It's going to get more interest. People, and the thing about corporate interest is that in the end, individual interest follows as well. So you're right. There's definitely a positive, but there is a concern, and you don't have any concerns at all that corporates or banks get to a position where they are very dominant in the crypto space.
No, it just confirms all the research I've done that shows Bitcoin is a legitimate asset. And I don't think that these companies would have spent all this money if they did not do a lot of research into it. And the research I'm doing is nothing compared to who they hire at some of these companies. And if they found Bitcoin to be an approvable asset for the companies to hold, I think I'm on the right track too with the research I did early on.
Alrighty. Well, I have to say that is encouraging. You've given me some reassurance, so thank you for that. I'm just going to check in with. I hope he doesn't mind me going to him because I'm always interested to hear his thoughts. Addicted, are you with us? Are you there?
Yeah, I just had to plug in my mic.
Oh, cool. Sorry. Thank you. Don't know if you've just been hearing any of what we've been saying. I just wanted to get your thoughts on what Bitcoin's been up to during the past week.
Well, I feel like it's been correlated to global liquidity for a while, so I don't know how far back you guys are talking about, like with the whole correlated to liquidity, global liquidity. I feel like everyone's waiting for that liquidity event where money printer go burr or whatever. I think we have one more dump and then it's going to bottom out and then we get a good summer, basically.
Oh, that's good to hear. I'm pleased to hear that. Can you elaborate a bit more?
Um, well, I saw this chart the other day that kind of confirmed it, but it's showing M2 global money supply on the rise, and it kind of puts it 3 months ahead of the Bitcoin chart, and it completely overlay. Have you seen this chart?
Whack it in
Um,
the chat, can you?
yeah, let me find it. But
But
yeah, here it is. Crap. So there's this chart, and it's the M2 global money supply, 3 months ahead of the Bitcoin chart. So he's saying in 3 months we're going to have like a rally, and in 3 months it's summer, which I thought we were going to have a rally in summer anyway. So I'm like, oh, sweet. But it also looks like there's one more dip to go, and I also thought that there was one more dip to go as well. So I'm like, oh, that's a pretty good cross reference. I mean, it might just be an echo chamber, but that was my prediction.
Okay, so
I'm
that, so
looking.
that chart's interesting. Can I just ask, where's this guy getting his data from? How reliable is that chart?
Oh, I have no idea. People say that the M2 is already kind of not reliable. Like Taskmaster is always saying that it's not really the greatest thing to use, but a lot of Bitcoiners use the M2 money supply to try to paint the narrative that money printer go burr.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and if we look at the Fed pivot, we've already started bringing rates down a little bit. They paused recently, which made the markets angry, and I think that's part of what's going on right now is that the markets wanted a lower Fed fund rate, and they're not getting it.
Okay. This chart, the M2 is, I have to say, pretty encouraging, don't you think?
Yeah, it looks good, and but oh man, I think in the immediate short term we're in so much trouble. Like
Oh, go on.
it just looks so bad. Like I like to do um, trading based on astrology just for fun because I think it's funny. Not that I take astrology super seriously, but I do know people who take astrology super seriously. You know what I mean? So I always like to like cross-reference my um, my technical analysis with like an astrology thing.
thing.
And
And
Come on then, give us a flavor.
on Friday we have a full moon, which is sometimes you'll get like a dump on a full moon, and it's also a blood moon, which is like an eclipse, which is like extra bad, and then it's also a Mercury retrograde on the same day, which is super rare, which is also terrible because it's supposed to disrupt like communications and technology and stuff, and Bitcoin always does badly on the Mercury retrogrades. So I'm like, oh, I already thought it was bearish, and now all these like astrological events are happening where it's like, oh yeah, it's super bearish. I'm just like, and then the M2 money supply thing, it's like, oh, there's another dip there that hasn't happened yet. I'm just like, wow, that's a lot of things stacked up.
Okay, and has this genuinely spooked you?
I'm ready to go irresponsibly long at like 70, 72K. So like a 10% dip, that's not too scary, but it is demoralizing for it to keep dipping like this, especially with alts just getting wrecked. Not a
Yeah,
big deal for Bitcoin, but pretty big deal for alts.
I know, absolutely. It is. It's disappointing and a bit worrying at the same time, for sure. But in and amongst all of the concerns that we're having here, this is I'm going to put into the chat now. I found this quite interesting. I often take a look at the posts that the founder of Binance set up. What do you call it? Let me get his name right. I always try and get this right. It is
Shengpeng Zhao.
Oh yes, Shangpen Zhao. He put this up. Well, he's tweeted. I think it's a tweet or it's a post. Let me just grab it. And just take a look at the dates. Now, I'm hoping that might be some positive uh, energy he's sending out into the universe there. I hope so, because just take a look at that to the day, almost, not quite, but is he telling us something there? Do you think or not?
Yeah, it's just so true. Like the morale in crypto right now is so bad, which is like ironically a very good sign. Like we're not going to get caught off guard with like a crazy thing. When there's this much fear in the market, the crazy black swan events do not happen. People are ready for that. They're not going to like get caught with their pants down or anything. I would say we're in a really good spot. I just think there's that one dip left to go, and I'm kind of like bracing for impact there. But I'm ready to go long, and I think that summer's going to be good. And I've, you know, the market always figures out a way to get in your head and make it seem like the thing isn't going to happen, but the same thing happens every 4 years, and like somehow the
Doesn't
market keeps psychologically messing with everyone and convincing them it's not going to happen, and it happens every time. This time is not different. Like it's going to happen. And,
okay.
the fact that people don't think it's going to happen makes me think it's going to happen more. I'm just like, oh, it's happening for sure now.
Absolutely. You're right. This does happen every cycle. But I have to say, don't want to be too negative for a moment, but just comparing, if we just look at the 4 year cycle for a moment and parallel with last time, we're not seeing quite the same type of parallel, are we? We didn't have this kind of big pullback last time, did we?
Well, are we talking about 2021?
Exactly.
Okay, so 2021 does not count because of COVID. Like COVID ruined everything. Like we dropped. I like when people try to compare what's happening in this cycle to the COVID dip because we dropped from 8K to 4K in a day. And people were like, oh, this 10% dip is just like when COVID happened. It's like, were you not there? Like, I was there when, like, right after the halving event, it went from 8K to 4K and everyone was like, it's so over. That was crazy.
Yeah, I
And then
mean,
it went X10 in like 9 months after that. So, and because it went X10 because we shut down the entire economy, and then they turned the money printer on full blast, and then it went, X10 to 40K, and then it dropped from 40K to 30K, and then 30K to 60K. Like, that was all just money printer liquidity event. Like, that was totally artificial. That's why it's not acting the same.
okay, yeah, fair enough. We had this global event, and let's be honest, COVID hit everything. It was a kind of an exception, and it hit everything. We saw Bitcoin plunge just as the traditional markets plunged as well. However, what we did see was that Bitcoin rebounded and recovered more quickly than the traditional markets, didn't they?
Yeah, that's why when people say Bitcoin is correlated to the stock market or it's not correlated, I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, if the stock market goes down 5% and Bitcoin goes down 25%, and then the stock market goes up 10% and Bitcoin goes up 200%, that's totally correlated, but it doesn't matter. The correlation doesn't matter. Like, it's going up faster, like exponentially.
Okay, so can I ask you the same question that I asked Solo? Does it not bother you that we are seeing the traditional markets becoming more aligned with the crypto markets, or do you not think that's happening?
Oh, it's definitely happening. I view money as like water. We even use water terms to describe it, liquidity. Um, so it's like if it rains, there's a lot of water around, and if there's a drought, there's not a lot of water around. So everything's connected through these like rivers and lakes of liquidity. So you can't really get around that. It's all connected. It's just a matter of Bitcoin siphoning more of that liquidity into itself over the long term, which it has done over and over again. Um, have you seen the compound annual growth rate over the last 4 years? It's 10%.
Oh no, I don't follow that too much. Tell us a bit more.
So the CAGR, compound annual growth rate, is 10% over the last 4 years, um, which means which means it's the lowest it's ever been. It's only going up 10% per year for the last 4 years, which is the lowest it's ever been. And people are like super bearish on that, and it's worse than the stock market. So I'm like, this is an amazing buying opportunity. It's people are like, oh, it's so over, but it's like, no, this is the bottom. We're close to it. I think, yeah. I basically, if we go down to 58K, that number will go to zero. I don't think we're going to 58K. I think 72, 69, 420, whatever your maturity level is. That's what we're
Yeah,
going to.
yeah, I'm really hoping it's not 58. I don't think it will be that bad, if I'm honest. I think the 72 figure is more likely, if it's going to happen, that is.
Yeah, 72 is at the top of that range. We were trading in that 58 to 72 range for 8 months. So I don't think we can trade there again. I think the market's over it. I think there's so much buying pressure there. There are so many buyers of last resort. Like I see all these people out there. They're super worried. They're super anxious about the market, and they're projecting their fear onto other people. They like to do it to Michael Saylor a lot. They're always like, "Oh, Michael Saylor, you're so." Have you that meme like, "Oh, you're so screwed when the music stops," and it's like the nerd kid is like up X 1,000, and he's like, "Okay, like sure I am."
Yeah, but did you not notice though, and this is what for me stood out most in terms of Bitcoin's buoyancy and resilience, is the fact that it really doesn't like hanging below 80K for too long. It soon rebounds, doesn't it? We've seen it twice in the past few weeks do that.
Yeah, I drew this big band from 77 to 85, and I've been talking about this for like a month. There's like a huge liquidity void between 77K and 85K. And I was talking about this when we were trading at like 95. I was like, I think we're in trouble, guys. I think we're going to this 77 to 85K range, and we're gonna get stuck there for a while because we only traded in this range for less than 48 hours because Trump won the presidency, and everyone freaked out and they pumped the market too fast. And whenever these gaps happen, we always come back to them. There's like a 98% chance of like filling a CME gap. I think we've only haven't filled it one time in the history of ever. So yeah, we filled it, and I don't know how much longer we'll be here, but this is close to the bottom for sure. For Bitcoin, I don't know about other stuff. Like that's the worrying part.
Yeah, well, this is it. I mean, the alts have clearly taken quite a hit. But no, I would concur with that. I think Bitcoin is still, I think, showing a lot of resilience given what else is going on and everything going on out there. So I'm not too despondent actually. I'm pretty bullish even now, even with this pullback. But all right, awesome. Thank you, Addicted, for that. Oh, sorry, did you want to say something else?
Yeah, just one more thing. I just think that we need something major to happen. Like it would be really nice if a bunch of banks failed again, because if you remember, Silicon Valley Bank and all that stuff, when they collapsed, even though they were all crypto banks and it seemed like a targeted attack with the whole Operation Choke Point 2.0, I don't know if you know what that is, situation where they were attacking crypto banks. Even when that happened, it was bullish for crypto. Even those all those banks were crypto banks, it was still bullish for crypto overall because we're kind of in competition with the banks. So I feel like the banks are in trouble and they're going to have to turn the money printer on and blah blah blah.
Or they're going to buy up a shit ton of crypto.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I gotta go pick someone up from work.
No worries. Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Eudicis. Right. I'm just going to put it out there to anybody else who wants to come in at all before I move on from Bitcoin. Anybody else who want to say anything at all on Bitcoin? And then I'm going to come to the Hive if he's gone quiet. The Hive there. Anybody else though who wants to come in? Okay. Okay. Solo. I mean, if Bitcoin dominance rises to 90%, yeah, I mean, it would absolutely cause the alts to get crushed. But I'm sincerely hoping Bitcoin dominance doesn't get to 90%. Are you anticipating that could happen? I hope you're not.
Well, it's happened in the past, and early on with Bitcoin, that was the metric. So I would say history would just be simply repeating itself again at that point.
Yeah, but that was back in the days when we would see Bitcoin trading like below $10,000 on an annual basis. No.
Yeah, before the days of Ethereum and then all the coins that were launched from there. It was before the IPO day, the ICO days and such.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, gosh, if Bitcoin could get to 90% dominance again, I think maybe something needs looking at there, because I like to think that the alts have gained a bit of ground in this space, haven't they?
Well, look at what countries are investing in and large corporations like BlackRock. I mean, they hold Ethereum and they maybe hold Solana, but they surely don't hold the tens of thousands of other altcoins out there. So look at what the big guys are doing. They're holding Bitcoin and then a small fraction of alts for the most part.
For now, but yes, absolutely. I take the point. All right, cool, fine. Gonna move on. In fact, the Hive, are you there? Just out of interest, the Hive, are you there, sir? Or are you just, oh, he's shut off his mic just as I come to him. I think he's trying to tell me something. Yeah, I think he's not there. Okay, fine. Right, I'm gonna move on to Hive then. We've got to move on to Hive because I think it's important to a lot of us. So let's just put in the weekly trading chart for Hive. So there we go. That's, oh, sorry, go on, Solo.
I was just saying, damn, that's quite the fall.
Yeah, it's a downtrend as you would expect, given what Bitcoin's been doing. I've just highlighted the lowest it went to. It got to 21 cent on March, 21 cents on March the 11th. Once again, correlating with Bitcoin's lowest ebb during the week. 21 cents, disappointing to see, of course. As you can see from the graph, it's generally down. But hey, it's back up again. It's back up to around 24 cents, I think, right now. So fortunately, we've seen some, partial recovery there. But given everything that's going on, I mean, let's be honest, I'm not surprised by that. Are you, Solo?
No, I'm not surprised. And if we take a look at Hive's altcoin rank, that's a really good tell of if the coin itself has gone up or down, or if it's a general altcoin versus Bitcoin market has gone up and down. So of course we saw Bitcoin fall, we saw Ethereum fall, we saw pretty much everything fall. So surely Hive's going to fall too. But I like to watch that rank because that's a really good tell for me if something's going on possibly where Bitcoin's falling more than the others possibly.
Well, that's interesting because I only take a kind of sort of fleeting look at that, to be honest. But when I do, I check CoinMarketCap, and right now Hive is listed at 282. So tell us, elaborate a bit more on that ranking, can you?
Yeah, well, we used to be in the top 10 way back with the S word, but Hive has done very well compared to the S word, and I'm really thankful for it because now the S word is somewhere in like 400. So we're doing really good, and I'm happy we've hung out even in the 200. That's fine by me. I'm proud.
Well, as you've just mentioned the S word, I had to check, of course, and you're absolutely right. Steam, sorry about that, is ranking at 422, and Hive is 284. So we are definitely doing something right, aren't we?
Absolutely, and when the fork happened for the first year or two, they were swapping back and forth between rank. One was a little higher than the other, and they were holding parity within like 10 points of each other. But they couldn't keep the scam going forever, and it's all falling apart now. And of course, the coin collapses because they can't control their economy anymore.
I must admit, it is quite a fall from grace for Steam, given the price it's at. It's about 13 cents at the moment, somewhere between 12 and 13 cents. Yeah, and as I say, and I've mentioned before a few times in this show, Hive and Steam were almost neck and neck for about 12 months. Then we've just shot ahead while they have fallen back. I mean, it is quite a fall from grace, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I was worried for a while. I'm like, what's going to happen here with this fork? But I saw all the good guys join Hive and people that wanted to stay on Steam. I mean, they had the right to do that. But there was a clear separation in the direction we were going. And I'm glad I stuck with Hive because the progress that we've all made, it's groundbreaking.
Awesome stuff. And on that positive note, I'm going to hand over to you, Solo, because I think you're going to be talking to us about mining and some kind of new emerging ways of mining. Is that right?
Yes. So I recently rediscovered people taking natural gas wells, putting generators on top of them, and mining insane amounts of Bitcoin. So let me kind of preface this and say in the United States, there's been a lot of fracking done, which is where you drill into the earth and you extract either oil or gas or some other type of mineral. And what you can do is you can take that and make gasoline out of it, or you can turn it into propane or many other petroleum products. But these wells tend to dry up eventually, or they become what's known as not economical, where they don't really perform very well to the point where they abandon them. And Bitcoin miners have been discovering these wells and buying these special generators that run on unrefined gas, plopping them on top of these old wells, and they're mining just insane amount of Bitcoins. So it's something I wanted to share with y'all. I have an article here. Let me just paste it in and show y'all what I mean. So they're finding all these old dying wells in America, and they're plopping these generators on there in places where you would really never have a need for a massive amount of power, using like Starlink and other types of satellite technologies. You can have these huge power plants in the middle of nowhere performing hashing, basically. And a few years ago, I actually heard about this, and people were actually doing it illegally. They were just going to find old those old types of pipes and hooking up generators and getting massive fines when they'd get caught. But now there's actually professional companies doing it. I read even Exxon is doing it. I'm not really sure about that, if that's fake news or not. But there's just some really interesting things going on with these old wells when they'd otherwise be capped. Now that people are finding ways to make them economical again, and using some of that material to power miners.
So, can you just give us a bit more detail on how they're actually doing this then, in terms of extracting and then putting that into the actual mining process?
Yeah, so like in the ground, they have these wells that they drill, and normally they'd extract liquid petroleum, or they'd extract natural gas, and they'd sell it on the market. So like people that need propane for their grills, well, they would get it from the earth. But eventually, my understanding is the flow rates slow down for these wells, and the companies that are mining them, they're not really worth the money anymore, so they cap them. And there's still a lot of potential in these wells, from my understanding. Like some of these things can produce upwards of 200 kilowatts of power, which is like 30 times what my solar array could do, and that's just one generator off one well. So there's an insane amount of potential in these wells still. Of course, you need a machine that costs like $170,000 to do this. But when you have the capital to do this, some people are doing it. It's really interesting.
And when are you going to get into this then? You're into everything else.
Well, where I live, there is no fracking, and I picked that on purpose. I'm not a fan of fracking. I think it can pollute the groundwater, and it can cause other types of problems. So I'm definitely not advocating for new wells to be drilled, but we have a massive amount of abandoned wells in America where they could go to use, and they could just not sit there unused. They could actually produce revenue.
I mean, just looking at the figures through this article, that is a huge amount of mining that you could potentially do here. So, are these wells owned privately, or are councils involved?
I think they're owned by large corporations. So they'll lobby a state and say we'll give you a percentage of our revenue that we make drilling, and the state will either agree or they will say no. We don't want fracking in our where we are. And for me, I definitely wouldn't want to live anywhere where fracking is being done, but a large amount of the United States does do fracking, and it's just a way of life for people.
Are you generally anti-fracking or not then?
Yeah, I'm anti-fracking. I would not support more wells to be drilled, but the wells that are already out there, there's nothing we can do about that. They already exist. They've already been tapped. Why not make use of it? And there's a lot of them. From what I've read, there could be possibly like a few million across the United States.
Wow, blimey, that is a lot of potential energy there that is being that so far is untapped. Um, I mean, in terms of what's left then of this gas, and if you can translate that into a figure, how much, how, in terms of Bitcoin mining, etc., how much could be mined Bitcoin wise, do you think, from these wells?
I've not done those calculations, so I couldn't tell you exactly. That's a really good question, though. We have to see how many miners you could run on 200 kilowatts. I think normal ASIC miners, they run about 3,500 watts each. So we need to do the math and kind of figure out how many we could get with 200 kilowatts. So um, yeah, I can't figure that out during the show, but that would be an interesting question.
Well, you need to get your calculator out because I want to know the figures later on. But anyway, okay, awesome. That is fascinating. That how they are kind of repurposing that unused gas and literally trying to grab some Bitcoin from it. It's just amazing to see the creative entrepreneurial activity around Bitcoin now, isn't it? There is almost it's almost as though the Bitcoin itself has become kind of well, it's like, I don't know, the new oil, isn't it?
Yeah, I think people, if they have the raw power, you should definitely put your raw power toward mining something. I think Eco actually said, he's like, if you can mine Bitcoin, it's a way of storing your power potential for later. Because you mine a Bitcoin and then you hold it, well, you put your waste electricity toward mining that, and now you have something in storage.
Do you know what? I don't know if Eco, well, he is there. Eco, can you just get on mic a minute? Because you're pretty into all this sort of stuff. What's your take on this?
Hello, can you hear me?
A little bit quiet, but we can hear you.
Okay, yes. Well, I am very interested in this. I'm a kind of a permaculture guy, and I got into wood gasification. And so you can make electricity from firewood. I grow firewood in the tropics. I think before the show, we were joking that farming in the tropics is a cheat code, and it really is. But I grow firewood. I'm growing firewood as a sustainable development solution to deforestation. And it just so happens, as I look into the possibilities, I mean, I have two options, right? I can figure out how to rewire my entire local community so I can power their houses. And the easiest way to do that is to power my own house, yes, but beyond that, it's much easier to Bitcoin mine with that extra electricity than it would actually be to give it to even my neighbor, because I'm very rural. So my neighbor could be, $5,000 worth of copper away from me. Well, it's much cheaper to just turn it into Bitcoin.
Oh, we lost you there a bit, Eco.
Sorry, go ahead, piece of money.
I think Eco was talking, but we've lost him a bit. Eco, you still there?
Yeah, I think I'm still here, but I concluded with Bitcoin is the way to electricity.
Absolutely.
In terms of you getting in on anything like this, anything going on where you are over there at the moment in terms of untapped resources to pour into Bitcoin mining?
We don't, other than like the firewood I'm tapping into. I mean, there's a lot of energy just in general in the tropical ecosystem, but I view firewood as one of the ways to tap into that. But there's a lot of efficiency stuff. So for example, one thing people might not know about growing coffee is the secondary coffee crop is actually charcoal. Every 7 years they chop down the coffee trees, and that wood is a very hard wood, and they turn it into coal. And the ladies here locally, they use that to make to grill out, like briquettes or whatever. But they're not briquettes; they're actually mineral carbon made for this. And so they do it in such a way, it's kind of an inefficient way. They bury it, a whole bunch of wood, and they light it on fire, and it smokes for 3 days. And, all of that smoke is kind of like the fracking well. There is combustible gas in that exhaust, you might say. That's harvestable energy. So, yes, all the way down. But I don't live in a particularly industrial region, although Colombia does have petroleum region in Santander, in Santander. And if I got into it, I would, I could shill any of this stuff. I love Bitcoin. I love energy. I love sustainability,
Could I jump in here with a relatively similar discussion?
Go for it, Starkers.
Thanks, man. So about 6 weeks ago, I was at the Plan B event in El Salvador, and I met a few guys there. And my background is oil and gas mechanical engineering. So I used to install turbines and generators and all sorts of things like that, extracting gas from wells and putting it through jet engines and sparking the gas and all that stuff, and then getting the energy out of it. So I got talking to these guys, and they were like, "Oh, we've got something interesting for you." So I didn't take them too seriously, but I said I'd go and see what they had to show me. So they took me out to one of these volcanoes, and they brought the local mayor, the state chief engineer, a couple of other local politicians, and a local business person, and the permitters. And they'd all got this group of people had got themselves together to start looking at volcanoes. And they took me to the volcano in the local village. We went about halfway up it, and there's literally steam coming out the floor, like high pressure steam coming out the floor. And there's already examples in El Salvador of electricity generation via steam turbine from the steams coming out of the volcanoes. It's incredibly hot on the floor. You can't tread too long on the same piece of floor because it's just so insanely hot. And all you need to do, I mean, they've got areas that are already, the right size to do a small turbine. You'd need to have a perforation in the floor, effectively a hole drilled in the floor. You'd need to then go test the steam, make sure the steam's the right quality, flow, cleanliness. But it seems that, to me, that if you raise a small amount of funds out there, about $10,000 a day, you would be able to do the test drills and cap them, and you'd be able to identify, based off that test drill, what the flow of steam is, what the cleanliness of it is, what the pressure is and the temperature. And then from that information, you can hand that to a turbine vendor, and they would be able to tell you what size of turbine you could get out of that. And then from that turbine, you drive a really, really, really high-speed gearbox that then drives a dynamo that then powers a power plant. And then down the bottom of the hill, you wire it down to a couple of containers with Bitcoin miners in it. And you can only do that study once you have actually done the perforations and understand what the flow of steam coming out of the volcano is. But once you know that information, you can then go into sizing the turbines, whether or not those turbines will be enough to power Bitcoin miners, and then whether or not you've got access to the site, or what are the changes you need to do to get access to the site to get the equipment up there to build the stuff. But it's very, very, very promising. So I've spoken to and it's promising because there's already steam turbines installed in El Salvador that power the power grid. So this would just need redirecting to be for mining Bitcoin. And so I've spoken to a couple of people on Hive just preliminarily, because I'm not sure how far this will go yet. But we're trying to raise funds. So if we can get some funds from maybe the Hive DAO, I think Dash will also be interested. We might be able to get some funds from Dash, maybe another altcoin. And wouldn't it be cool if we had the first steam turbine mining Bitcoin in Bitcoin land in El Salvador with a Hive plaque on the side of the turbine? just a bunch of altcoin shitcoins getting together to be the first people mining Bitcoin in Bitcoin land, which is what they should have done themselves when they raised billions of dollars in so-called volcanoes that seem to have gone missing. So
That would be
an
something.
opportunity.
That absolutely would be something indeed. I mean, that is fascinating to see just how versatile you can be with generating electricity. Let's be honest, that is crazy stuff, because that was a fascinating story. Thanks for that. Can I ask you though? You mentioned that you're seeing this in and around where you're living at the moment, but are they pouring this into Bitcoin miners then, or not? Have you not seen that part? Are they not doing that with the energy they're generating?
No, they're not. They're not at all. They have power generation, so it's and they have. Part of the reason is because if you have power generation, you have to have a sizable plant if you're going to power a town or whatever from the grid. So you're talking about 4 or 5 turbine installations, backup turbines to make sure that you've got redundancy in case one of them shuts down, which is very likely, and certainly during maintenance you need to have a couple installed. But for Bitcoin mining, you don't necessarily need to have redundancy, so you can actually just bang these things in fairly easily. You can just have one. You do normally need a train of 2, because when you have to replace the turbine blades, it's quite a piece of work, and some of these blades cost up to $500,000 kind of thing and more. You need to have spares on site, and you need to have mechanics on site to make sure the thing doesn't shut down, because it's hard to get it back up and running again once it shuts down. But it's done. It's done already. It's just that they're using it for electricity generation, so there's no reason it can't be done for Bitcoin mining. It's just that, as far as I can tell, the money hasn't got to where it was supposed to have got to. And it's not just that, like you need to get permits, you need to get the local politicians and the local people feeling that they're going to make some money off it. You need to make sure that the top level government's in on it. Everyone, all the stakeholders need to come together and agree. And that process in itself can take months and months and months before they all come to like, yeah, let's do this. And then you can go raise funding. And before you can even raise funding for it, really, you need to do a study to make sure that you have a definite, concrete set of evidence that there is steam coming out of this before you start the job. So it's like, okay, you need to have a pre-study, which you pay for, and it can cost $100,000 probably to do the pre-study, that would confirm to you that you can get steam out of these things in the location you've got the permits. And then once you've done that, you can then size the turbine based off that, and that allows you to then go raise the funds that you want to raise to do the project.
Can I just ask, do you think there's a little bit of irony in steam being generated to mine Bitcoin?
Amazing. Imagine if Hive managed to get a steam generator mining Bitcoin. That'd be so good.
I mean, it's great. We need more stuff like this, more initiatives like this, not just generally for the environment, but to mine more Bitcoin, which is what we all want to do, I think. And it'd be great to see Hive as a community involved in something like that. But okay, awesome. This is fascinating stuff. Thanks for that, Starkers. Solo, anything else more you want to say on this?
Yeah, I had a chance to kind of look at the numbers for what one of those generators running off natural gas could produce. It looks like anywhere from like $1,500 to $3,000 a day in daily profit from Bitcoin.
Say that again. 1,500 to what?
About 3,000. I couldn't get a straight answer from the AI, but it looks like it's quite the revenue stream. But you'd have a large upfront cost, of course. But that's some damn good money.
Okay, could you just put a figure on that upfront cost?
Probably at least 200,000. Probably more for the land as well. But the machinery is at least 200,000.
Yeah, so it'd be you'd have to do a fair bit of mining to make that back, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But it's free electricity in the end. So I guess it's hopefully the well wouldn't dry up, because then you'd be out of luck. But otherwise, it runs 24 hours a day, and unlike solar, you can only run it during the day. So, and you can't really run it on cloudy days. So it's just an interesting concept.
Absolutely, it is. Damn right, it is. Just as the steam to convert that into electricity to mine Bitcoin is also fascinating as well. I mean, it is great to, as I say, to learn about all these different ways you can generate electricity to mine Bitcoin. Okay, awesome stuff. that is fantastic. Right, I just want to. We're slowly running out of time, but I just want to move on to what has been going on in the US last week, especially with the first ever crypto summit held by at least the US government. I can't imagine many governments in any country have held crypto summits. Maybe a few have already, but not many. So it was quite an event to see the United States holding this crypto summit. It was I think it was in the White House. I'm not sure. I may have that wrong, but I think it might have been in the White House. It was Trump again and his crypto czar. But you know, it was I mean, the live feed, for those of you that followed it, the live feed only went on for about half an hour, and then they cut it, and then it was back to behind closed doors conversations. But I think the fact that they're holding it is great. I think it's more evidence that this is definitely a crypto friendly administration, which is a significant development in my opinion. I'm only talking crypto now. I'm not talking the wider politics. I'm just talking crypto. So it's great to see all these things happening. Then, of course, they announced two crypto reserve funds. There's been a lot of speculation about this. We were speculating it. I was talking about this in last show. We've now had it confirmed. So we're seeing a huge development here with Bitcoin now becoming a kind of global reserve asset in some ways. I would argue. So huge, profound developments. And in terms, though, when we look at what Bitcoin's been actually doing, yeah, we've seen it jump a bit. We've seen it do some vertical movements, sometimes in response to these policy announcements, and it's been encouraging to see. But as we've been discussing previously, we haven't seen it sustain. It's fallen back again. But nonetheless, I would have liked to have seen, given the significance of those announcements, I would like to have seen Bitcoin do a bit better. But anyway, Solo, what are your thoughts on these developments in Washington?
Yeah, I definitely heard the news about how they're planning on holding Bitcoin. Definitely not a fan. I don't think they should be taking seized Bitcoins and building their coffers out of that. What I realistically would have liked to have seen them done was burn all of the seized assets of Bitcoin that they have, and then buy fresh ones on the market. But that didn't happen, and instead they just decided to say, we're going to stop selling all of the seized Bitcoins that we take from people, and we're just going to hold those. So I guess it's better than selling them, because they've been selling them for the longest time. You would always see these notifications, I think that from the U.S. Marshal, saying that there was going to be an auction of Bitcoins. And it's been happening ever since the Silk Road days, where they've been selling their Bitcoins slowly but surely.
Yeah, I was looking at that actually. I think the US currently owns around 180 or 190,000 Bitcoins, which they've seized from various civil and criminal cases, and they forfeited them or whatever. So they've grabbed all that Bitcoin, and previous administrations have been selling them as and when they want to generate some extra income, some extra revenue. But what I also thought was really significant. I mean, I appreciate you're not a fan of the way that they're going to fund these reserves, especially with the seizing of these the Bitcoins that have come from criminal activity. But what was fascinating was that I think crypto czar, I've forgotten his name now, or the US Treasury Secretary said none of the Bitcoins going forward will be sold. Did you see that?
Yeah, and that's what I'm happy for. They definitely did something in the right direction where they're not going to sell anymore. But like I said, I kind of wish that they just send them to null, make them never to be used, and then to buy fresh ones on the market. That would have been the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is like, oh, never mind, we're just going to keep selling these Bitcoins, and Bitcoin's bad. So it's like a neutral approach that they took. They're like, we're not going to sell any more of our seized Bitcoins, but we're not going to buy any either.
Yeah, okay. So this is what I was hoping they might have done as well. Bought in, hoped their investment would go up, and then, as I say, sort out their debt or whatever they wanted to put that money into. That's what I was talking about last week. But now we've got more details about the fund. Yeah, I must admit, I was a bit sort of 50-50 on the way they're going to fund it. But isn't that just an initial capitalization of those funds, do you not think they might be tempted to buy later on?
Absolutely. That's just the current state of affairs right now. That's what they said they're doing now. Of course, they could change their mind, or they could be a whole new president that's even more bullish on Bitcoin in the future.
I mean, either way, let's be honest, it was, I think, overall a positive development for Bitcoin and crypto. Because don't forget, they introduced two reserve funds. One was, I think, was the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. I forget what the other one was called. It was a Digital Assets Reserve or something.
Gotcha. I'm not too sure, but like you said, it would be amazing one day if Bitcoin mooned so hard they could pay off their debt. That would be pretty crazy.
That would be some mooning, but yeah, damn right, it would be awesome to see. But right, what are we doing? It's 9:01 over here, so we've got a few more minutes, but I better wrap up soon. Let me just see what he did. He did just said USG strategy of stealing from Bitcoin was dumping from their staff performance. Yes, absolutely. It's disappointing. Addicted, are you there? Do you want to just quickly say something on these two reserve funds, that the crypto reserve funds that have been set up?
I just think it's kind of a nothing burger, but it'll probably lead to something else. Like once people get the Bitcoin bug, they just keep doubling and tripling down. I mean, we've all seen it happen. You first get involved, you dip your toes in, and then all of a sudden you're just knee deep in Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, hopefully, as you say, something positive will develop somewhere down the line. I still think it's quite significant development. I think there is some positivity there. So let's hope more can be built on this. But let's just hope this is the foundations of something good to come. Anyway, running out of time, so I'm just going to quickly wrap up because I need to remind people that we do with this show offer every month we give out a 10,000 HP delegation. And I haven't spoken about it, I think, for the past, I didn't speak about it last show, but just because the current baton holder is Aloha Ed, is his Hive name, also known as Edwin Boyette. He's the current holder of the 10,000 HP delegation. He gets that for a whole month, and then we announce a new winner, and they get it for next month. So each month, someone gets 10,000 HP to boost their stake with. Nice little boost, I would say. And I just want to say that in relation to the criteria for winning that, there's the two main things we look for, and this is the most important thing. It is merit based, so you've got to be doing something good out there in the Hive community. You've got to be doing something that's doing some positivity. It doesn't have to be upvoting or commenting or posting, or that of course could qualify, but it could be something else. You could be running a great project that's really helping boost the ecosystem, or you could be, I don't know, you've tokenized some sort of project that's going really well. It could be anything, just as long as it's doing some good overall for the Hive community. That's the main criteria for winning the 10,000 HP delegation. And the other aspect, the other criteria, the second one is just simply that you maybe come along to our show and just let us know. We know you're there, so we know who to give it out to. It's just a little bit of the special sauce, as we call it. So yeah, we do that each month. And the next time we'll probably announce it, maybe next show for April's winner, or maybe the show after. But we'll keep you posted on that. Right, we have virtually run out of time. Going to just check in with Solo Squire. Anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up?
No piece of money. This has been another great show. Really enjoyed listening to everyone chime in here, and happy to share my findings about reusing natural gas wells to do Bitcoin mining.
Yeah, that was quite an eye opener. I didn't realize you could do it, to be honest, and to hear about the steam, that was also fantastic as well from Starkers.
Yeah, like that.
That was amazing. But all right, people, that is it for another show. So thank you to everybody who's turned up. Really appreciate it. Good to see you guys here, and we'll be back again next week for